What's going on? Everybody, you've got the card board coach here with your boy, Coach Co. And team, today we've got a very special guest on the podcast here today. We've got Richard from VANCITY Card Show. How are you doing today, man?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Brendan, for having me join here. But yeah, no, very excited about the chat today.
I'm happy to have you. We've connected a few times. We've often met up at the Toronto Sports Card Expo. If you guys
Yeah,
haven't had the opportunity to check that out, I highly recommend it. We're constantly getting people to come in. I had a conversation with Stephanie at Mama Breaks this past weekend at the National. She said she's going to look to come up. Mary Gamble is also talking about coming up.
awesome.
We've got Jay, who's like a frequent flyer in Canada, and Kyle over at King of the Cards. So it's funny, all roads lead to Toronto and the Expo almost.
Yeah, no, I have seen you there a couple times, right? And we have a lot of mutual friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just great going to events like this and just meeting a lot of people that you don't always see, or you don't you're not like they're not in the same city, right? So
Yeah. Well, we're going to switch gears a little bit and stop talking about the Toronto Expo. We're going to talk about the Van City Card Show. This is a brand new card show. It is coming up in a few short months, rather. It's out west. I'm excited to dive into it with you as one of the founders and give some people some information. You've been slowly rolling out some teasers. Hopefully, you get to give us some more information, not only about what's going to transpire, but maybe some you know sneak peeks on things that are upcoming as well. So let's talk a little bit about the card show itself. What is the Van City Card Show? What are you expecting from this event? Let's go from there, and I got a bunch of questions. I'm excited.
yeah, so we started planning this around November. So it would have been around that time at the Toronto Expo. And every time I'm at that Toronto Expo, the most common question I get asked is, how's the market out there in Vancouver, right? Not everyone really hears of any big shows out in Vancouver. So um, it's a very underrated market, and that's when we got together and started thinking of possibly putting on a big show, right? The organizers and myself, we all travel to a lot of car shows, so we've seen what's out there, and we really want to implement that out in Vancouver. If you think of Vancouver, it's one of the biggest cities in the world. If, Actually, if you think of cities around North America, you think of Toronto, you think of Chicago, you think of New York, you think of LA, you think of Dallas. They all have very big shows at nice venues.
Yeah.
But Vancouver, although we do have some great local shows, we really want to put a big show on the map here. So we're hosting it at the Vancouver Convention Center, one of the top convention centers across North America. It's right in downtown. So the beauty of that is you can take our transportation system is awesome, by the way. So you can take a SkyTrain right from the airport, 25 minutes, you'll get straight to downtown. And that's really where the show is. So it's facing the water, beautiful venue again. Yeah, Vancouver hosts a lot of big international conferences there. So we're looking to bring a card show out there. October 11th to 13th is when we're hosting it. So it's the long weekend out in Canada.
I'm excited to go out west. I don't go out west very often, but I'm definitely going to be doing it for this. I've also never been to Vancouver, so we're checking two things off the list here. I will say, as someone who just came back from the national, one of the biggest pain points was the infrastructure of the city, and it just really not being able to accommodate that amount of people, truthfully. Their transit system, everything was kind of spread out. The hotel situation was not very close to the venue. There were multiple times where I was like looking on Uber to go from point A to point B, and there were probably three drivers on the road. and I would just for shits and giggles see how long it would take to get to me, and it was like 21 minutes, and I'm like, it's just not feasible. And maybe we live in this world where we're just so used to everything being so instant. But nonetheless, if that's what we're used to and that's really not what's obtainable for us, it definitely results in some pain points for collectors for sure. I know that I was discussing with Mojo, like even getting into the venue, for instance, there was such a lineup for the parking situation that like he had to get out of his Uber and walk on the freeway because it was like 35 minutes to the door and they weren't moving. So it's nice to hear that there's lots of infrastructure in place to accommodate. I mean, obviously not the same magnitude, but we're still looking to get quite a number of people out there, right? Like, what is your attendance? What are you anticipating for attendance?
We're hoping to get past 8,000. So, and I feel like we can smash that number very easily given the amount of hype around it right now in Vancouver. So, uh, yeah. And speaking of the infrastructure, like we did consider actually hosting it in Richmond. Richmond is right next to the airport,
Yeah,
but we really wanted to give people who are traveling out of town, and there are actually tons of individuals traveling outside of Vancouver to come to our show. We want to give them that Vancouver experience, right? So you can actually not just enjoy the card show, but enjoy everything about Vancouver, right? So that was a big part of our decision making in terms of putting it in downtown.
I love that. I love that headspace. More and more I find myself gravitating towards shows where I can experience not just the cards, but the people and the place that I'm going to as well. Sometimes I leave shows and I'm almost bummed out that I didn't get an opportunity to check out the place. Like I know that we went to
Yeah,
Rosemont for the national, although it does say Chicago, it is not Chicago. It's like it's outskirts Chicago. It's like
yeah.
quite a ways away from Chicago. So you don't really get like an authentic Chicago experience unless you go out of your way to get that, right? So and when everything is so close by, like the hotels and the meetups for trade night and stuff like that, like it definitely makes things much more difficult in terms of like I'm gonna seclude myself almost from like everybody else and then go XYZ. You almost like miss out on the actual card show experience, I find.
Yeah, no, for sure. And when it comes to like meetups, we're going to be announcing a couple spots where people can meet up, and it's all just around different venues in that downtown core. So you get to really experience downtown itself. And all our cruise ships actually board in that area. They're right next to that convention center. So imagine the amount of tourists and tourist activities that happen right there.
That's gonna be pretty fun. Talk to
Yeah.
me a little bit about the sponsors. You guys got some pretty big names on the list, including Tim Hortons. I mean, this stuff like you don't really see at card shows, man. So talk to me a little bit about like the work that you guys have been doing behind the scenes and which sponsors you think would like have fit best. Like, how does that process look?
Yeah, so speaking of like traveling and families and whatnot, we really want to encourage a lot of families and kids to show up at our events. So when we think of um, a big community sponsor that really handles a lot of stuff with kids, like Timbit Soccer, for example, it's Tim Hortons. So we reached out to them, and we really wanted to get them involved. The beauty is they're actually releasing their trading cards, their Tim Hortons trading cards that same week. So you get a sneak peek of the trading cards. They'll be giving away some trading cards to the kids. There'll be a little trade zone for Tim Hortons as well. So and we're thinking about sponsors. Yeah, as much as we want sponsors within this field, we want it to be welcoming for everyone, and we want it to have we want to have brands that are recognizable for those who don't even connect, right? And to check out what card collecting is all about. So Tim Hortons, yeah, absolutely is one of them. Maybe I'll pause there for a second in case you have questions about Tim Hortons.
I no, man. I think it's really cool actually. The fact that it worked out the way it did, where there's going to be cards available that week. I mean, hockey cards are a massive part of collecting in Canada. They're a massive part of my collecting journey. Like I started collecting sports cards through hockey cards. Like those were the first
Yeah.
actual cards I've ever got. They were an inexpensive way to get into the hobby. They were like $1 a pack. My
Hmm.
parents were like, "Yeah, of course I'll get you Tim Hortons cards every time I go get a coffee or something of that nature." Versus like, I mean, you see some of the prices of blaster boxes, and I
Yeah.
mean, blaster boxes aren't like crazy expensive, but that in general, like if a parent is kind of pensive on or hesitant in any way, shape, or form about spending money on the hobby, it's a great introductory tool. I mean, I probably wouldn't have existed in this space if it wasn't for Tim Hortons hockey cards. So it's kind of
Yeah.
cool to have that come full circle.
Yeah, like back in the day, it was Tim Hortons and McDonald's cards, right?
Yeah, that's how
That
I got into
that's
the
where
hobby. That's how I got into the hobby.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's gonna be great for the kids and kids under 12, it's gonna be free as well for them to enter.
So that's another thing that I think is huge, right? Like one of the biggest things that I mean, the Fanatics Fest is on its way in the next 2 weeks, and it was definitely a talking point at the national. And a lot of people were saying that one of the biggest things that kind of holding them back from going is the fact that like even if it's a $30 ticket for a kid, like that's still it's just
Mhm.
not a thing that you do typically in the space, right? Like you want to encourage kids to attend, you want to encourage families to attend. I love that you're really leaning into that with this show.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. But something we are taking away from Fanatics is really that fan experience. So I'd love to hear maybe 2 weeks from now what that looks like, right? And how that compares to the national. So when you think of fan experience and really local team support, another announcement we have is BC Lions. BC Lions is a big sponsor for us. So that's extremely exciting given that the Grey Cup is actually coming to Vancouver this year. So we might even see the Grey Cup at our event. They're going to be traveling with the Grey Cup. We're going to have their dance team with us. They might have a truck outside to just encourage people to come in to the conference center. They got a big nice setup with their big lion. So it's going to be a fantastic experience. It's going to be again that fan experience. Possibly some alumni as well. So we're finalizing all that, but that's our big leak for you.
It sounds like the stars are aligning here for this show, man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like, again, we're trying to have a little piece of everything that is working well and that we've seen work well at different shows and put it all together in Vancouver. So um, yeah, very excited to have BC Lions as a sponsor.
Talk to me about like starting a show from the ground up, right? Like
Yeah.
what does that look like? What are the things that you consider? Like, I mean, we talked a little bit about infrastructure and making sure that the kids are taken care of, and you encourage family and, having sponsors that reflect that. But like, what are some other things that you think are notable that maybe aren't often discussed?
I guess it starts from the ground up, which is who are the organizers, right? So who are you working with to build this up? Um, as mentioned before, I do travel for quite a lot of car shows, go to a lot of local car shows. Actually, three of my partners are local here. So Pardeep and Arvin are from YVR Collectibles. Eddie, he's also known as Fast Eddie's.
Yeah.
He's another individual that we're working with. And then there's Karn from Slab Sharks. So we've all met through these shows and we've all worked previously together before the show. So we all know how we all work. But the beauty is our skill sets are very, very diverse. We all come from different backgrounds. We also collect many different type of things.
Yeah.
Um, we go to different shows ourselves. We have different communities. So we really did that legwork to understand from our following what they want to see in Vancouver if we were to put on a big show. And then we came together, and I would say that was a big piece. That's why it took so long before we really announced anything. Because although I said we started up in November, we started these conversations probably 6 months before that. So now we're talking about over a year of planning for
Yeah.
this show, right? So I'd say that's a big piece.
Yeah, I don't think people understand enough, like just how much planning goes into like a 1 day, a 2 day, a 3 day event of this magnitude. Like you've got people flying in from all over the world. You've got special guests, like we mentioned before. You've got sponsors. You've got a ton of inventory that's like worth some pretty significant amounts of money, right? So like there are so many things that need to go right, have to go right.
Yeah.
And so kudos to you for undertaking this, you and your team, and I'm excited to see kind of like what transpires.
Yeah, and Vancouver is a very ethnic diverse city. And a big question we always wanted to solve was how come a lot of these individuals are not coming to the show? What will it take for them to come to the show? Because we know they are big collectors, right? They do have big collections. So what will it take, right? Same with we meet a lot of vendors or individuals like yourself across the country in the States as well. How come they're not coming to Vancouver for the show, right? How come they're not looking to set up at the show? So really understanding all of that and getting a pulse of that was really important to put this together. So if you look at our show, about 40% of the vendors, if not a little bit more than that, are actually ones outside of Vancouver. And then about 20% locally don't usually set up and have really, really big collections. So it's exciting to see a lot more diversity in terms of the cards we typically see in Vancouver. And we expect to see a lot of liquidity as well, which was a big thing we wanted to solve. Because if people come in with cards and they're not able to sell them or move them, then there's not enough liquidity on the show floor. So that was a big thing that we wanted to talk to all our vendors about.
Yeah, and that was another thing I was going to talk about, right? It's like it's one thing to have like good collections. It's another thing to like want to move some of those pieces or to have the right buyers in place in order to have some of those pieces move. So, I mean, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth in saying that like you guys have been kind of working hard at making sure there's going to be liquidity on the floor.
Yeah, yeah, we're getting a lot of U.S. buyers, especially with their U.S. dollar being so strong. They're flying out. We have individuals from Texas flying out, so that's exciting to see because again, that liquidity is going to be super important for a successful show for both the vendors and those attending.
I think it's cool that you guys are going to be out west, and I think that it's cool that there's just not a lot of big shows out west. So I wouldn't be
Mhm.
surprised if we see a lot of people from the Californias, as this thing starts to pick up, uh, maybe make note of it and actually come and join. I know that like having a passport in the States is kind of like a it's not really a thing. But hopefully we get some people to come over because it really isn't too far from California at all.
No, well, we travel to Burbank all the time, right? So we'd love those individuals to travel out our way as well. So we'll definitely be out there and chatting up with individuals as well. So yeah, just making sure that we get a lot of presence from the States.
Awesome. What do you anticipate the types of cards that'll be available? Like, do you think it'll be a predominantly hockey show like the expo? Do you think it'll be a mix of everything? Like, and I mean, obviously the expo has everything, but like,
Hmm,
I'm
hmm.
talking maybe percentage based.
Yeah. So that's where we also vary a lot from our local shows because when you think of our local shows, 90% is hockey, right? Um, But for us, because of the organizers in our communities that we have, Arvin and Pardeep and Eddie, they're very heavy on basketball and football. So you'll see a lot of that. I think Karn plays in a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But we have a big Pokemon space. We're actually going to be announcing. Actually, I might as well tell you. So, Gem Mint Pokemon is he's a YouTuber himself and very well known in the Pokemon space. He's coming out. We've got a big Pokemon presence, and it varies from very expensive cards to not very expensive Pokemon cards. So a good 30% is going to be TCG, which is exciting to see. I'd say maybe Pokemon and One Piece. And I'll give it about maybe 30% as well is going to be non-hockey. So
I mean, those are
it's
good. Those are
probably,
good. Those are good percentages.
yeah, I expect us to have a much larger presence in basketball and football. And I see it already with the vendors indicating what they're bringing. We also did that on purpose because when we released our tickets, I mean, to the vendors, we actually started looking at their Instagram pages and actively, proactively picking out those that would fit into our mold. So we want that nice diversity at our show.
Yeah, so I guess that's another question I was gonna have is like, how do you select vendors? But I guess I mean you've handpicked vendors to attend the show.
Yeah, I would say maybe 30% was just simply them hearing about us, or they may not know about us. But a lot of these individuals are people that we've talked to in the past, have seen their collections, have made deals with in the past, like their stuff. Um, I'll even speak on the hockey side. Most of those individuals coming out here are people I've worked deals with and made deals with. And it's not just again on the high end. It's a big mixture. So yeah,
It
it's
it's gonna be fun to have a show in October because there's so much happening in October. October is like in November is great, and generally we have uh at the expo a lot of hype around so many different sports. But if you look at sports like baseball, for instance, like that's kind of over. I mean, it's October baseball. It's not really November baseball. You'll get like some World Series stuff, but
yeah.
generally it's like October baseball. We have like football season starting up, basketball season starting up, hockey
Mhm,
season
mhm.
starting up. Like they're like we're in like infancy. Like this is when people are the most excited about these sports. Is generally at the beginning of them, or at the very end of them, like the postseason. And
Yeah.
you kind of finally have a show where the timing might just be perfect on a lot of different sports. And I think that is super exciting.
Yeah, that came into play definitely as well, right? We also wanted to fit it in where it's just right before some of those other big shows that are coming up in November, right? So it gives people an opportunity to buy and flip maybe at the Toronto Expo, maybe at another local show that we have as well here in November. So again, back to that whole liquidity. When there's hype with new sports, just seasons starting up, that's when you see a lot of movement in the sports car space.
I mean, I think it's really cool. I'm very excited. Talk to me a little about some of the other strategic moves you made in this show. Like, what are some other things that you've done with this show to kind of maximize the experience?
Yeah, so I'll add another corporate sponsor that we
Yeah.
have coming up. It's PSA Autographs. So that's really exciting because they've only come out to Canada once, which is in Toronto. So to have them on site authenticating autographs, that's huge. And that ties in nicely with one of our guests that we have, an autograph guest, which is Bret Hart. So Brendan, I'm sure you watched Bret Hart
Yeah. Yeah.
growing up, right?
Legend.
Legend, legend. Actually, on the Bleacher Report, he was rated top wrestler of all time. That's debatable, but that's a really we're really leading on that, and but yeah, he's huge. So we're very excited to have him. He's a Canadian born athlete as well, so he's from Canada, from Calgary actually. So very excited to have him out. He'll be signing, taking autographs, doing photos. He'll be doing some interviews as well. And from what we've seen and the talks we've had, he's very non-rushed when it comes to the experience, right? He's we really want to make sure those attending and meeting him don't have a rushed experience. Really get to have a conversation and get to meet him properly. So excited to have that, and obviously PSA autograph would make it very very seamless in getting that authenticated.
I think those are two huge things right there, right? Like I've never seen there have been like three massive lines I've seen at the expo for autographs. One of them was Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
The other one is Carey Price. And one that was arguably on the same level, and I didn't see anyone in the line for Carey Price dressing up like a goalie, was Mr. Hart right there. It was I saw people dressing up like
Yeah.
in in his attire. It was crazy. The fandom, wrestling fans are just like a different breed, and him himself is he's an entertainer. So when we talk a little bit about, people not feeling rushed, I think the entertainers, they understand, like
Mhm.
you see it with like Hulk Hogan, you see it with like Ric Flair, like they care very much about like the experience, the persona that they've kind of like created, and that everyone kind of embraces as a result of that. So I mean, I think again, like you guys have hand selected these vendors and these sponsors and these athletes to really cater to the best possible outcome here.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say about Bret Hart, but yeah, it's again really catered for that experience. And we often do see a lot of autograph guests on the hockey side, but we wanted to change things up a little bit. We wanted to bring in a different community to this show. So it's funny because we'd have actual professional wrestlers reach out to us and actually want to meet their idol, Bret Hart. So there's going to be a lot of other professional wrestlers coming out to the show just for that. So that's really nice to see.
I absolutely love to hear that, man. Richard, if we wanted to get in touch with you about buying tickets, I don't know what the vendors setup is like. If you guys are 100%, if people just wanted to be informed, where can we go? Who can we contact? I want more information. Where do I go?
Yeah, so it's all at vancityshow.com. Vendors, we have about 5% left, so we're very, very close to filling it up. So if you're interested, do go on our website right away to get your table. You can get your tickets right on vancityshow.com as well. You'll also notice there's a location and hotel link as well. So speaking of transportation and logistics, all that detail is there, including some restaurants and food courts that you can go to when you're at the show. So all the details are under location and hotel. And speaking of hotel, take advantage of Pinnacle Hotel. So Pinnacle Hotel is a partner for us, and they're giving away $100 discount for a room, and it's just steps away from the conference center. So I'd say take advantage of that because it can get pretty expensive the longer you wait to get a hotel in downtown Vancouver. Again, it's a very big tourist spot, so try to take advantage of that because there are limited spots.
I love that. And make the commitment, make the commitment, come out. It's going to be a fun show from what we've talked about and, knowing who's behind it. I mean, hopefully this gives everybody a little bit more clarity as to what's about to transpire because it is going to be insane. I'm a proud participant of the media crew, so I'm excited and we're gonna have some fun out there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's going to be some others joining you as well. And I might as well announce your buddy, Dr. Collectible, as well. So he's going to be coming out, and uh, we're gonna have a blast. Stay tuned also for a big giveaway. So we're going to be announcing a big giveaway, likely a cash prize, and we're gonna fly someone out to the show, and we're gonna tape that whole experience. So that's never been done before. I don't want to leak more than that, but Brendan, you're gonna be joining that participant or that winner as well. So that's gonna be very, very exciting. Again, talking about liquidity, we're giving them some cash to spend it on the floor, and we're gonna really tape that whole experience. So.
Unbelievable. I'm super excited. Team, if you haven't already, please check out Van City Card Show. Stay tuned for more updates on my end. Richard will definitely be posting as well. If you haven't already, like I said, vancitycardshow.com for all of your information in terms of hotels, tickets, vendor tables, whatever you need. October 11th through the 13th in Vancouver. I mean, the West Coast of Canada has never seen something like this before, so I'm excited.
Perfect. Yeah. I should also drop one other thing. Tickets at the door are $20. However, we are going to be extending the $13 pre-sale price till August the 15th. So we're going to give everyone a bit of time to purchase their tickets. There's been an overwhelming response, so we've decided to extend it a little bit further. So $13 till August the 15th. Grab your ticket. Do consider the VIP and the 3-day passes, because there's going to be some goodies that are announced in those ones. And that's going to be very, very exciting as well. So stay tuned. Follow our Instagram, VANCITY Card Show.
Love it. Richard, thank you so much for jumping on here and giving us the rundown. I'm excited to see what happens. As I said, it's going to be a fun time. Team, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Cardboard Coach featuring myself and the VANCITY Card Show. Please go get them a follow and have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.